Prophet Malazo Ndera built his empire on certainty. His voice never trembled, his hands never shook, and his smile, wide, warm, fatherly, never cracked under pressure. People trusted him because he looked like a man who had never doubted anything in his life. And for years that illusion made him untouchable. Every Sunday, thousands flowed into the radiant Ark Cathedral, a structure so immense it could be seen from the highway like a floating golden kingdom. Inside, beneath a ceiling painted with angels holding trumpets, Malazo performed miracles. He lifted the sick. He multiplied blessings. He spoke of prosperity as if it were a seed only he knew how to water, and the people believed. They believed even as his convoys grew longer, his jet collection expanded, and his estate swelled into a private city. They believed as long as the lights stayed bright and the prophecies landed clean. Because every empire built on faith needs a perfect figure at the center. But perfection is a fragile disguise. Behind the scenes, Malazo's world ran on engineered miracles, fabricated visions, political bargains, and a vault beneath his mansion that held the blueprints of his power. Gold bars, secret contracts, offshore documents, and a ledger written in a cryptic language only he understood. He was a king dressed as a shepherd, and for a long time the performance was flawless. Until the day he crossed the wrong line. Her name was Neema Mbele, a quiet, soft-spoken widow who had scraped her life savings to join the church's covenant circle, a program Malazo claimed would bring supernatural financial elevation. She believed him with the desperation of someone who had nothing left to lose. And when she fell ill, strangely suddenly, Malazo promised healing, but only at a private session in his inner chamber. She entered that room alive. She never walked out. The official announcement said she passed peacefully during prayer. But the staff member who prepared her body noticed something strange, a thin red mark around her wrist, as though she had been strapped down. Another staffer overheard Malazo whisper sharply to his inner circle, "No one speaks of this. Burn everything she signed." And for the first time in years, a crack appeared in the empire because Neema had a son. A quiet, stubborn young man named Jairo, unimpressed by miracles, unmoved by theatrics, unafraid of power. And unlike most, he did not believe the story. He demanded the church release all records of his mother's involvement. They refused. He asked questions. Doors closed. He went to the police. They stalled. So he went digging on his own. And when he found what the church hid from him, receipts, recordings, the unedited footage of his mother's last appointment, he did not react with rage. He reacted with precision. He leaked it, not to the authorities, not to journalists, but to the internet. The video exploded like a bomb, because in the footage, just visible in the corner of the frame, Malazo could be heard saying, "Seal the doors. She must not leave until the covenant is complete." The public demanded answers. Investigators raided the church's offices. But the real earthquake struck when a government task force raided Malazo's mansion and discovered the vault. Inside, they found gold bars stamped with foreign insignias, unreported land titles, hard drives full of offshore transactions, and a ledger documenting every major bribe, every laundering scheme, every miracle investment that had fed his empire. It was no longer rumor. It was no longer speculation. It was written in his own hand. But the most damning item was a single red folder labeled Circle of Covenant, Private. Inside were documents showing that Neema and others like her had signed contracts transferring assets directly to Malazo under the guise of spiritual elevation. The story went global in a day, and overnight the congregation that once filled the cathedral like a living sea turned into a desert. Attendance dropped by 93%. The livestream comments became a battlefield of anger. Volunteers resigned. Choir members walked out mid-rehearsal. 2 of the 12 pillars, the men who once followed him like shadows, turned state witness. For the first time in his life, Prophet Malazo Ndera was alone. The golden dome of his church felt colder. His mansion felt larger. The silence around him felt heavier. Reporters camped outside his gate, authorities froze his accounts. Courts issued a warrant. Still, he tried to fight. He called an emergency broadcast, standing before a white backdrop, dressed in humble gray robes. He wept on camera, claiming he was the victim of an orchestrated attack. He accused the enemies of light. He demanded loyalty. He invoked scripture after scripture, but the world had already moved on, because the internet had seen the vault. And you don't unsee a vault. The final blow came from within his personal accountant, a man who had served him for 15 years, turned himself in and handed investigators a USB drive containing the vault's full digital inventory, every illegal acquisition, every manipulated miracle, every fraudulent prophecy ledger. With that evidence, the courts moved swiftly. Police stormed the mansion just before dawn, breaking through the ornate doors that once welcomed presidents and billionaires. The vault was sealed, catalogued, photographed, and hauled away piece by piece under heavy guard. Malazo watched from the balcony as the pillars of his secret world were carried into the daylight, gold bars glinting like exposed sins. He did not speak, he did not resist. He only stared as if witnessing the burial of a kingdom. In the following weeks, radiant Ark Cathedral went silent. The gold lights dimmed, the screens went dark. The massive parking lot, once overflowing every Sunday, gathered dust. Only a few loyalists remained, wandering the empty halls like ghosts refusing to accept death. But the empire was gone. Faith had limits, and Malazo had crossed them. The courts seized his properties. His inner circle collapsed. His congregation evaporated. His name became a warning whispered in churches across the continent. Beware the shepherd who feeds on his flock. He sits now in a holding facility awaiting trial. No longer wrapped in linen robes, no longer flanked by bodyguards, no longer shielded by myth. Just a man in a gray uniform staring at the wall, replaying the moment everything he built dissolved like smoke. Some say he still prays. Some say he still believes he will rise again. But the mirror tells a different story. He is no longer the richest pastor in Africa. He is no longer the most powerful. He is simply the man who thought miracles could buy immunity, a man who built an empire on faith and lost it to truth.